Welcome to the Scale Your Real Estate Podcast, your express lane to financial freedom. Your host is Sam Wegert, a seasoned entrepreneur and real estate expert. Together, you'll explore high-speed strategies and invaluable insights in real estate, enabling you to scale your investments and spend more time doing what you love. Whether you're new to the game or a seasoned pro, this is your roadmap to building generational wealth and living free from the 9-to-5. Scale Your Real Estate, accelerating your path to financial freedom for a life of purpose and joy.
It is a fantastic week, and I am happy to be here.
So what do you think about this cool blue light I got behind me? Ever get on YouTube and you see all these YouTubers? They like the blues and the purples. Kind of feels like a disco behind them.
I'll be honest. I thought my monitor was broken. I was like, man, my hue is way off. The hue is, but it's not the hue. It's the light behind you.
It's not the hue. It's hue.
It's you.
It's not the hue. It's I'm experimenting with cool blue light effects behind me. I don't know. Yeah. I'm not sure I'm cool enough to pull it off.
Well, there's definitely effect here. I like it.
You do like it.
It makes you a little orange.
I was going to say, my face looks a little orange. Yeah. My camera is having trouble adjusting.
You got a little carrot top going on, just a little.
Just a little. Yeah, I got to keep working on it. I mean, you got to keep the camera equipment up to date so you look cool and you can post to YouTube. And
well, I've had microphone envy for a long time. I mean, you get that cool radio microphone that's pretty phenomenal. Mine works. Mine's okay, but it's not the radio mic.
I guarantee your sounds just as good as mine. Half the time I don't even use mine right. My face isn't close enough, or the amp isn't turned up right. It shouldn't be this complicated to record a podcast. It really shouldn't.
It shouldn't be, but it is. Y'all got to keep up with the Joneses. Have you been listening to any good podcasts lately? Are there any competing podcasts that you just really love these days?
I don't even know if I should share this in public or not.
Oh,
should I? And I think you know the one because you and I.
Oh, I do. I absolutely. I didn't know if you'd said this one or not, but it's pretty amazing.
I listened to for the last year. I've listened to Smartless pretty regularly. Those guys are fun, and entertaining. But then we obviously got turned on to something completely and totally different than Smartless, which is the Blurry Creatures.
Blurry Creatures,
right. Man. I don't know why that's my new guilty pleasure for whatever reason. It's in fact it's. It's Aaron Rodgers' brother is one of the guys on it. They're up in Tennessee, and they're out there. Like, I'm not gonna lie, they're out. The podcasts, the topics, they're out there. But like I said, I mean, I sometimes I dig just like hearing about Bigfoot and hearing people's stories. It's just crazy.
Well, I think it's this sort of thing where it's a little verboten to talk about crazy topics like that. So I think the first one you and I listened to, it was all about the people, the mermaids, and this was
way too far out there.
But it was very entertaining. It was very, very entertaining. But then they get into other stuff, like you said, like Bigfoot. And it's like, when else are you going to talk about that stuff? I mean, that's kind of fun it's entertaining, very entertaining.
And you're just constantly trying to run it through a filter of, could this be legitimate? Is there something to this?
Is there just enough there, right?
Yeah. You're just constantly having to make this internal decision. Am I going to let myself believe some of this or not? I think I can, but I can't go that far, but where is the line? How far am I going to let myself believe before?
You know what it is? It is the Ripley's Believe It or Not of podcasts. There used to be a TV show, right? The Ripley's Believe It or Not. And it was like, this is amazing. It was like, is this really real? Is it real?
Yeah. I think the more pertinent comparison now is Ancient Aliens or something like that, like a History Channel. And they've really delved into that. And some of that stuff's out there, but there's just enough believability too, where keeps people watching it.
Oh yeah.
So that's my guilty pleasure. What about you? You have a podcast that you're into right now?
Like you, I listen to Smartless. I can't remember the name of what's the one with the real rich guys, the billionaires. You turned me on.
Oh yeah, the All In, man.
All In podcast. Yes, I've been listening to that quite a bit lately, which is just interesting. It's like sitting in a circle with a bunch of guys and just listening to them talk, and it's like that's some really interesting, perspectives. I enjoy it.
Yeah. I'm with you on that. It's good to mix it up. You don't want to get stuck on one podcast. I'm sure that people pop into ours, listen to one or two, and then pop out, probably listen to other ones as well. Yeah. Hey, as long as you're getting one or two in, we're happy you stopped by.
Yeah, but then I got one other one I listen to called Reflections, but it's it's deep theological talk about stuff. A guy from Ireland, actually. It's a guy from Ireland here in the States, Kimbo. I like that one.
Oh yeah. Kimbo is awesome. You ever listen to Jordan Rayner? We listen to Jordan Rayner. In fact, Anita was on his podcast. not too long ago. He's an author, Christian author. That's nice guy. Written some pretty good books.
But my favorite podcast is this one. This really is my favorite. This is the one.
Well, yeah. I mean, it doesn't get any better than this, Kevin. Let's be honest. It's about as good as it gets.
We get some really interesting people. I find myself, after we talk to someone, I'll think about it for days. It's like, man, we should get into that. Like, we should be doing that. Like, that's really amazing. Like, we should, every week it's like, I probably had 20 different business ideas based on people we've had in here. We should be doing that. We should launch that. We could do that.
Oh, I told you at the outset, I said that, hey, do not get the shiny object syndrome. It's coming every time, every person you talk to. I will say this, though, this guest that we have on today, which wasn't necessarily recorded today, but I have a call set up with him tomorrow. So I followed up because I want to delve. I think there's so much to affordable housing. In fact, I just wrote a blog about affordable housing that's going on in our newsletter because I really do believe that that co-living and shared housing is going to be the future of the next decade. I mean, I strongly believe that. And from an investor standpoint, there's more momentum behind it than like the Airbnb model, where there's municipalities shutting it down. Affordable housing is being opened up. I mean, even it's solving a major issue in the United States right now regarding affordable housing. So I love it. I say we bring them in. I say we bring them in, even though we talked to them about a week ago. Let's bring them in. So Sam, welcome to the show.
What's up, Ken? Thanks for having me on.
Hey man, great to meet you for the first time. Glad we got a little bit of time before the show started. I'm so super intrigued by this whole business category of co-living and house hacking. I want to get into that, but I am curious, since we made this interesting connection that you're from Lynchburg and Kevin lives in Lynchburg, and Kevin knows your dad. Take us back, like give us an idea where things started for you and how you kind of found your way into house hacking.
Yeah, it's such a cool connection, Kevin. I'm excited to tell my dad about the meeting you today. So yeah, my dad's worked at Liberty University for, I think it's 35. It's going on it might be going on 40 years now, but he's been there for a long, long time. And he started actually as an electrician at Liberty University and, worked his way up to being the dean of international students and graduate admissions for a while. And my dad is this is kind of a nice segue into entrepreneurship, I think, because my dad is extremely academic. So my dad has like 2 bachelors, he's got a master's, he's got his doctorate of ministry. And I was the kid who came along. My dad had 8 kids, so he's got a big family. And I was the kid who came along and was like, hey, Dad, I think I want to drop out of school. So because my dad works there, I got a full ride scholarship to Liberty. And I did about a year's worth. And I was like, I think I want to do this entrepreneurship route. And to my dad's just amazing credit and his belief in me, he was like, Sam, I did the academic route and you see where that got me. I love my life, but sometimes I feel like I could have gone further. So you pursue that. And he just believed in me. And to the point to where when I was 15 years old, and that's not exaggeration, I was literally 15 turning 16. Him and my mom gave me a $15,000 loan to buy a little martial arts school in the town of Amherst, Virginia, which we talked about. And that was where I cut my teeth on entrepreneurship. So big shout out to my dad just for everything he's done for me in my life. And he might even listen to this episode later. Now, I will say, so that's some positive things. Now, my dad also bought a bunch of real estate in 2007, 2008 in Lynchburg and Winston-Salem area as well. And that did not go over well for him. And so that really put a bad taste in his mouth for real estate. And he would say things like, Sam, I think real estate ruined me. You need to become wealthy and can help me retire, And so I took that very seriously as a kid and grateful that I've kind of had to face some of those fears maybe coming out from childhood to now be, all in on real estate.
So you had a 16-year-old in a strip mall doing martial arts, which I got to say, that's pretty impressive.
Thank you.
How did you, and you watch what happened to your dad with the market. How did you step into real estate? Like what were the steps that you made into this world?
Yeah, I think one of the things, and again, I'll just shout out my dad for doing this. And I think my dad did this with almost all of his 8 kids. He really humbly recognized that I just can't teach my kids everything. So he would just put us in front of other mentors. He wanted me to go and train martial arts because of the instructor that was there. And the instructor was a business guy. And so he wanted me to get more. So he just kind of got me out and got me other mentors. And it was those mentors who kind of started to break down some of those beliefs of no, you need to save money, you need to invest money, and real estate kind of came up as the best investment. So I bought this little 3-bedroom, 3-bath condo in the town of Charlottesville, Virginia. It was about an hour away from where you are, Kevin. And I just lived in one room and rented out the other rooms. Now, keep in mind, I'm from 8 siblings, 2 parents. So living with 10 people, living with people is not a like, that was normal to me. Right. And so that was kind of where this co-living, house hacking idea was kind of birthed, was like, I'm living in one room and I'm making money. And I call that house hacking. When you're living in the place and then you're renting out another part of that place, that's house hacking. When it becomes co-living is when you're not living there. And this is my opinion on it. It becomes co-living when you're not living there. It becomes a true, pure investment play, right? You've moved out and now you're just trying to create cash flow from this property. So that's kind of how I got into that. Then I moved to Charlotte to buy some more martial arts schools. I was doing that full time at the time. And I bought another house. I tried to live in it by myself, but it was like too quiet. I didn't have a girlfriend at the time. I wasn't seeing anybody. And I was just like, I'm going to have some roommates. So I had 3 roommates in that house, and everything clicked for me this moment. One of my best friends in Charlotte, he was a really high up banker. He was like a president of a bank in Charlotte. And he says, how much are you renting that house for? And I did some quick math. And I said, well, I'm renting this house for like $2,800. And he was like, man, that house would only rent for $1,300 on to a single family. So for whatever reason, the way he said it, it just clicked. Like, wait, I'm doubling the rent. And then I went on this journey of saying, well, if I'm doubling the rent at 4 rooms, could I do more if I did 5 rooms or 6 rooms or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10, right?
Totally.
And that was kind of my journey into this asset class of shared housing, which is really what co-living is. It's just shared housing. I will say this, I would get sick literally every time I would buy a house. Even if I was, putting 3 or 5% down as a primary residence, I would like physically feel it. I think some of that was from my childhood. And so there was definitely fear that I had to overcome in that journey.
I'm so interested in the fact that a 16-year-old bought a business with 90 clients.
He was 15.
What 16-year-old
15 going on 16? Yeah, it's crazy.
What 16-year-old? Like, I have a 16-year-old. She's amazing, but she does not have the wherewithal to run a business. Like, how did that work out for you?
Here's what literally happened. I started training at 13 years old, and people just started telling me that I had the wherewithal. I mean, I know that sounds crazy and simple, but like my instructor would just be like, you'll run a school someday. You want to run a school someday? I think you could run a school someday. And my parents believed my martial arts instructor, and they were just like, Master Clements was his name, as we call him. Like, Master Clements thinks you can run a school someday. And I kind of grew into it. I mean, it's one of those things where it's like, if what's the saying? Like, even if it's a lie, if you tell a lie big enough, bold enough, strong enough, long enough, eventually you believe it. It wasn't a lie. I just believed into it. I grew into it. I mean, really, that's what they did. That's why I commend all these people around me that just believed in me. They're like, you can do it. You can do it. Wow. Now, the one thing my martial arts instructor did was, before he left, because he wanted to sell me the school because he was like burnt out, hardcore.
Okay. Yeah.
He hired a consultant, and that consultant would drive from Lynchburg. He's probably one of the most prominent martial arts guys in Lynchburg, and he would drive to Amherst every 2 to 3 times per week, and he would train me. And same thing. You can do this. I've seen people your age do this before. And I would spike my hair and I'd look older, and I would go out in the parking lot and ask people to join my karate school and give them my cards away. And it was pretty crazy when I think about it. I mean, there were a lot of tears because I was not very extroverted, and I was having to market. He'd send me to CVS. He'd be like, you don't come back from CVS. I'd stand in front of CVS until you have 5 appointments. Do not. And I was just like, okay. I just didn't know any better, right? Because at 15, you're still moldable, right?
That's so. I mean, did you make a go of it? It worked? You were profitable? How long did you run? I'm just so curious. I mean, I know we're kind of off topic. I'm still, my mind is
blown. Real estate. Let's talk martial arts.
Yeah. I just want to know, did you pay Dr. Wegert back his money? That's what I.
Yeah. Did he get his loan?
I did. I paid him back in 5 months. Actually, I paid him. I made what I needed to make and paid, I think, $3,000 extra. Yeah, I was making for me, I was making great money, right? And I might have been $3, $4, $5,000 a month, but that for me at 16, that was the most money I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah, totally.
Because I worked a job, I made $10 an hour before that doing some construction stuff or whatever. But yeah, it worked. It was profitable. It was profitable enough for me to save money, and then I moved from Amherst to Charlottesville to open up a new school, and because I needed a bigger city, so I was like, I need to move big city, and I sold that school, and I didn't sell it for a ton of money, but I sold it to my brother-in-law, who was a martial arts student. So he took that over. I moved to Charlottesville. Now that school in Charlottesville is still here to this day. That school became one of the top 1% of all schools in the nation in terms of students it had and income that it created. And then I just kind of went on this little rant of I'd put someone in charge, and then I moved to Charlotte, and I'd start one, and I'd put someone in charge, and I'd start one, and I'd put someone in charge. Kind of like the church planting model, I guess you could say, for since we're all Lynchburg folks here.
Yeah. That's
so how many
crazy.
do you own currently? Do you own, I mean, are you still holding on
So
to
we
all these
built
karate?
7. Yeah, we built 7. We built an online program, and as of 4 weeks ago, I just sold them all. Yeah.
Did you really? So you
Yeah,
just exited the karate
everything. Yeah.
business.
It was a very sad day. It's a long story of why I did it, but it was the right thing to do. I sold it to the operators individually. Every operator bought their own.
Yep.
And it was a great exit for me. It was a great thing for them. They got a kind of a running made business that I'd put a lot of systems in, and that's allowed me to pivot to real estate 100%. So that was it was the right timing. It was the right timing.
Well, now it makes sense. You had mentioned before you went off to college, and college maybe just wasn't the right fit. Well, you'd already run businesses. You'd already started multiple businesses. I can just imagine you sitting in a classroom, right? For English or comms, and it's like, why am I here? Like, I've got these other businesses I've already built.
I have nothing against college. Like my dad, but you're right, Kevin. I mean, it was I had severe ADHD growing up, and so like I just didn't sit well. Like I need to either be like talking or doing something or fidgeting. All my pens, I like mess with the thing. This is like every pen either has this part broken off or it's like all because I have to be doing something,
Right. Here's mine broken off too. I do the same thing, man. Every one of my pens is broken because I fidget. That's so funny. Every one of them. That's hilarious.
That's great, man.
Okay, so you pivoted because you were house hacking yourself, and you're like, wait a second, the light bulb went off. This math just seems to make a lot more sense.
Yeah.
So what did that look like for you to kind of go all in? I mean, you did your own house, and then what did it look like for you to then start scaling, especially if you're going to do this full time?
Yeah, the very long story of my real estate journey short was like I built these martial arts schools, and that was my main gig. And anybody who says, "Oh, you have to be all in on real estate," like you can build real estate on the side. I built real estate on the side, and it was a fairly intensive. I wasn't doing like long-term rentals. I was doing co-living. So there was 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people in each house. And I was able to build that on top of a 60, 70 hour a week job building a chain of martial arts schools. So, you have to be dedicated and committed to it. And I have that time. And I really wanted, I was made fun of a lot. We didn't grow up with a tremendous amount of resources. And so I was made fun of a decent amount. And I just thought the way I could impress my friends was to be successful, And so that was what I was like obsessed with. And this seemed to be the way to go. And it just kind of fell into place. And so really what happened is I would just buy a house, put my 5% down as a primary residence. I had a good, I had my W-2 job running the martial arts schools. Yep. And then I'd live in it for 1 year, go back to the exact same banker and be like, hey, year's up on a new primary residence. And he'd be like, okay, what are you doing with the other one? I'm like, here's 6 leases that I just put on that other one. He's like, and he would always be like, what the heck? I'm like, yeah, but you can add that back into my income, can't you? Because he's like, yeah, I guess I can. Like he'd add all 6 leases, the income back into my income, and I'd qualify for another primary. And I would just do that for, a good 4 or 5 years in a row. And that was kind of how I initially built the company. I have a lot of commercial loans and more homes now, but that was initially how it got built. And it was a really, really fun process. There was a time where, to be honest, when I had like 3 homes, I didn't see a lot of other people doing co-living. And so I was very like down on it. I was like, is this even a thing? Like, am I just going to get in trouble? One day, am I going to wake up and this not work? People not want to rent a room? And I had an opportunity to meet at an event. I had an opportunity to meet Robert Kiyosaki, and I like waited in line for like a long time to shake his hand. And I'm assuming all of your listeners know who Robert Kiyosaki is. Yep. And I said, hey, Robert, I'm doing this thing where I'm renting out rooms in homes, and I'm a little nervous. I want to buy another one. I had like 3 at the time. I was like, I want to buy another one. But honestly, like none of my friends are doing this. Nobody in my mastermind is doing this. Like people think it's kind of crazy. And he just, you ever like have that one time in your life where someone says the right thing at the right time forever your life changed? That's what he said. He looks at me and he's like, Sam, I believe room rentals and co-living. I don't know if he called it co-living at the time. He goes, I believe it's the wave of the future. And I was like taking notes, and I was just, all I wrote down was like wave of the future. And I just remember thinking like, and then he leans in and he's like, I think like the economy is going to get worse and worse and worse. He's kind of doomsdayish right now. He's like, the economy is going to get worse and worse and worse. He goes, I know how I'm going to split my 4,800 square foot house into 6 rooms.
Wow.
When that happens. And I was like, well, man, if Robert Kiyosaki, like if it's good enough for him to do it, and it's good enough for me. And that gave me the confidence to like even truly go all in. But I built this pretty much alongside my martial arts school. And only until 4 weeks ago did I sell all of that. I was pretty involved until then.
Okay.
And Brandon Turner is a friend of mine. He used to be the host of Bigger Pockets, and he invited me on to talk about co-living. And that was probably the pivotal moment where I started teaching people about it, because like we got like 500,000 downloads in the first 30 days. And like all these people were reaching out saying, I want to do co-living room rentals. And I didn't have the time And so I just started kind of training people about it. And that was more the moment where I think my life really got consumed by the model versus just investing it on the side.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Now, it's a unique model in that there's not a lot of it out there. There's not a lot of templates on how to do this. So how did you figure out, like, here's how the lease is going to work? What if I have to evict somebody? What about working around my municipalities and what's allowed? How did you navigate all that early on? Because you were figuring it out. Like, you're literally building the plane while you're flying it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it was like the first house, I didn't have any leases. It was like this 1-page little document that was like 2 paragraphs that I'd have people sign. And apparently that doesn't work well when you're trying to evict somebody, because one guy just stopped paying and would just squat in my house. And he was like the weirdest guy. And I had just upped the rent. You know, you get like a little greedy as a landlord. You up the rent and someone says, I can do it. So that was me. I just put him in.
Yep.
So there's a lot of lessons because I wasn't a landlord. So a lot of little lessons. Thankfully, overall, I was blessed because I just had good people in there and I vetted them well. And I kind of had a good gut check for people. I kind of had a good vibe check for people. But yeah, I basically just started with leases. There's a whole journey to the leases, but started with just, okay, I need a better lease than just this 2-paragraph thing. And then it kind of went from leases to now we use something called membership agreements. And the reason we use a membership agreement is because that's really a more legal way to do it, is basically what it boils down to, and I've modeled it after PadSplit. Kevin, I know you mentioned PadSplit. PadSplit's one of the largest companies kind of managing these properties. And one of the ways that they kind of circumnavigate these like boarding house rules or rooming house rules is by having a membership company. So it's like this company owns the LLC. Let's say, XYZ company owns the LLC. It leases to one person, because in the United States, an LLC is considered one person. It leases to one other LLC, and this LLC happens to have a lot of members.
Mhm.
And then those members get to use the house. And it's more complicated than that, but basically it's a membership model. And that allows them to get around a lot of these restrictions of like, oh, you can't have 5 long-term leases on a property or 6 long-term leases on a property. Well, it's not. I don't. These people just have access to this home. And, technically they're just part owners of a company that lease this home. And so we've kind of modeled after that. And that's what I teach now. And that's what we use in our companies, is these membership agreements. A lot of these regulations that are very old and outdated, by the way. I mean, they were designed, these laws were put in place around when they were basically trying to keep out prostitution houses and trying to keep undocumented immigrants, 50 of them, from all living in a home.
Yep.
They were not designed to regulate like what we're doing, which is like professional, clean, working professionals sharing a house together. And so we're starting to see a lot of positive regulation. I know before we jumped on the call, I talked about the City of Yes initiative, which is like New York's way of promoting co-living. LA just launched a big initiative promoting co-living. The U.S. Department for Housing and Urban Development came out and basically said, we'll now allow Section 8, or what they now call housing choice vouchers, to be used for co-living. They said, we believe, co-living can solve affordable housing in America, and all jurisdictions need to look at this as a model. So there's a lot of positivity happening in this model. We operate a little bit in a gray area, to be clear, but we have a good faith legal way, if you use the membership model, to circumnavigate a lot of those restrictions. I even got on a call with the top head counsel from PadSplit. I said, how many times have you been shut down? Because they have 10,000 rooms in 40 cities. I said, how many times? And they have 9, 8, 10, 11, 12 people sometimes sharing a house.
Wow.
And he said they've never been shut down.
Wow.
Yeah. And I said, how do you do it? He goes, let me tell you. And I said, let me get my lawyer on the call, please, because we're going to copy that.
That's
So
where
you're
the
not-
membership idea came from.
You're just
That's
using a
exactly
strategy,
right.
not necessarily utilizing PadSplit or Bungalow or any of the other services. You're just doing it yourself.
That's right. So we self-manage. I teach people to self-manage. I'm not against people using PadSplit to manage your property.
Sure.
They have to be willing to pay the fees, and they have to be willing to kind of hand over control to a big tech company that's frankly just getting better right now.
Yeah.
And I want to create a little bit more of a community feel than PadSplit does right now. That's more my vibe of what I'm trying to create in these homes.
Yeah.
But PadSplit is really solving affordable housing, and it's part of what I feel like is the mission of this model.
Yeah.
You talk about community, and we've heard different perspectives on how to establish that in the house. We've talked to some folks who say, I don't do any shared living spaces. That's where conflict occurs. But where do you land as far as, is there a shared living room or family room? Is it a shared kitchen? How do you make sure the fridge stays clean? How do you handle that side of thing where you're trying to create community, but you also want to avoid any tension spots.
Conflicts. Yeah. Yeah. Pad splits stance for the longest time was no common areas because that's where conflict occurs. I don't agree with that because having lived in these homes for 13 and a half years, some of these housemates became my buddies. Like I facilitated the wedding of one of my housemates. I would connect with another one of my housemates. Like I had a really great time just getting to know these people. And so we're trying to create, so all of our homes have to have a community area. Like that's one of our guidelines for the homes that we create and how I teach and coach investors to do this model. We will not put TVs in the common area because that can be a source of tension. We don't even usually put couches in the common area for a variety of reasons I won't mention on this show, but like you just like high top tables. Yeah. People sleeping over, just like weird stuff can happen on the couch, right? So it's just like high, kind of an active high top tables, cocktail type tables where people can kind of hang out, shared kitchen. We label all the cabinet space, label all the refrigerator space. So everybody has their own section. We bring in professional cleaners once or twice a month to make sure the place stays clean and everybody contributes. We do in their membership agreement, they have to initial a spot where they're responsible for this little checklist once every month. Each tenant is like once every 2 months, I guess, because somebody does it once a week. If there's 8 people in the house, that would be once every 2 months, their cycle would come around. And so there's a lot of little things that we do like that. We have house rules that they have to initial to. We obviously have keyless entry door locks on everything. Not a lot of tension happens we'll put desks in the common space so people can kind of work outside of their room if they want to. No personal items allowed in the personal space, so it keeps kind of clean. So those are a few of our house rules, so to speak, that we implement. And you'd be surprised. I mean, if you compare this model, I think what most people have a reference for is Airbnb. I have an Airbnb on a lake here. It's a really nice lake here in Charlotte called Lake Norman. And every time I have a guest, either the cops get called or the neighbor somehow complains. Like it's because it just like attracts parties and the neighbors hate us. That does not happen in co-living if you do this correctly. Like I've had maybe 4 complaints in the last decade of doing this. Because this is people's homes, right? This is not a party house. They're not bringing in 20 other people. Like that, we do have a restriction on the number of overnight guests that people can bring over. They have to initial that. They have cameras on the outside, etc. So, it's not nearly as party friendly as an Airbnb is. This is like people living there. It's quiet, it's clean, it's safe, and it's people who are working professionals.
Mm-hmm. What about parking? I mean, you start stacking 5, 6, 7 people in there. How does that play out? You just have to have a house that accommodates a lot of cars?
Yeah. I mean, it really depends on what city you're in. I've got a client in San Francisco. He fills 400 rooms in San Francisco, and there's 0 parking for any of these places because that's just how San Francisco rolls. Sure. In Charlotte, you need parking, right?
Yeah.
So if you're closer to a bus stop, that's going to be really beneficial because then you'll have some people without cars. We've found that we have about 2/3 the amount of tenants that we have, or members that we have, I should say, have cars. And so as long as we have 2/3 the amount of parking, then yeah. So sometimes we'll add a little parking pad to the right or to the left of the main driveway. Mm-hmm. We love neighborhoods that have street parking. Absolutely no HOAs. We really shy away from HOAs. Yeah. But if it has street parking, then that's something we really try to accommodate.
That makes sense.
But that's a great question, actually.
Private bathrooms versus shared bathrooms.
That's a good question.
Yeah, private bathrooms are going to rent for probably 20 to 30% more. So in Charlotte right now, a private bath, and keep in mind, these are utilities included prices, can probably rent for almost $1,100. And then a shared bath's going to rent for probably $700 or $800. So there's a significant difference on that.
So you do both. You've got facilities that have some are shared bath, some are private bath.
Yeah, for sure. Now I'm in the process of developing ground up. We have 4 development sites, 2 in Charlotte and 1 we just bought in Black Mountain, North Carolina. Which I already have a house. The model actually works in the Asheville area really well because housing is just super tight there. But we are developing these duplexes that will be 8 bedrooms and 8 bedrooms on bottom and 8 bedrooms on top and 6 full baths each floor. So it's going to have a much higher ratio than a lot of times we keep now, which right now one of our rules is you have to have at least a 3-to-1 ratio. We don't allow a 4-to-1 on the homes we buy or the ones we manage, or a 5-to-1 or a 6-to-1. Like we want people to be able to share with as few people as possible.
I mean, the ground up development seems super intriguing because, like you said, you could just jam it full of bedrooms and get a whole. But like, where are you able to find lots with the parking and then the zoning? Is the zoning an issue when you're doing something like that? Or are you just still going straight single family zoning and then just using this membership model?
Yeah, you have to zoning is like very jurisdiction, like per jurisdiction, right? So I can't say for whatever, everybody should check their
Sure.
local zoning jurisdiction to
For
see.
sure.
But Charlotte just passed a law or a rule that you can build duplexes on single family lots and without even prior approval. So that because they're trying to increase density, as long as it's within city of Charlotte, you can actually build duplexes, triplexes, or quadplex on single family lots now. And there's some restrictions to it, but like that's basically the general rule from what I understand. And yeah, so in Charlotte, we're just building on 2 single family lots. And yeah, we might be technically exceeding the occupancy a little bit on each of those duplexes, but it's not by a tremendous amount. And we have the membership model, and we feel like we've still got a good faith way to operate. These people can use these rooms, and based on our model. The Black Mountain, we actually scored a small piece of multifamily land.
Oh wow.
So I feel like, yeah, it's like 0.77 acres. So we're gonna put 2 on that, and it shouldn't be a problem there. So yeah, you definitely have to think through like, hey, am I sticking this in a nice neighborhood that's just gonna, like it's gonna be a pain in the butt, or does this neighborhood? Because the need is for people who make, and I told you guys this before the show, between $20,000 and $60,000 a year. Like that's the need for this group of like people who serve you at Target, put your groceries together, even at Whole Foods. They're making 15 to 20 bucks an hour. They're at all the gas stations you stop at. They put your luggage on the airplane. Like where do those people live in a city? They either have to drive an hour, or they have to do something like we're talking about that's a little bit more creative. And so you do need to think through parking. You do need to think that through. You need to think through where it is in the neighborhood, and then obviously check zoning. But in Charlotte, we're actually moving forward pretty heavily with being able to do these on single family lots.
That's huge. Yeah, especially if they're encouraging that and allowing you to do
Yeah.
duplexes and triplexes on single family properties. That's awesome.
Exactly.
What's your metric? Like, what are you aiming for in terms of like your cost maybe per bedroom and your rent per bedroom? I mean, I'm assuming that you've got numbers, you got a buy box that you're shooting for.
Yeah, it's very much a moving target because we have investors all over. So every, like, you might be able to get in California, your numbers can be totally different than in Charlotte. I can give you what Charlotte's is, but like Charlotte is not. I wouldn't don't extrapolate that to any other cities. Like each city is going to have its own rent metrics that you're going to have to look at, and it's going to have its own its own price per bedroom that you're going to look at. And in Charlotte, I look for about $50,000 per bedroom. And that bedroom's going to rent anywhere from, $800 to $900. Now, there's a little bit of discrepancy there because we have those private baths. And so sometimes they'll rent for more if I do have a private bath, et cetera, et cetera. Ultimately, what I'm looking for is a cash on cash return. And that's basically a 15 to 20% cash on cash return. So if it hits that metric for me, and that's a very personal metric. That's not something I put on anybody else. I'm just saying that is my metric for whether or not I will sell a property if it's doing less than that, reposition into properties that are doing 15 to 20% cash on cash return, which, and I want to be really clear. This is a return that is after CapEx, miscellaneous repairs, vacancy, management fees. I mean, it is a conservatively underwritten number.
Sure.
And to be able to achieve that, I don't know how sophisticated the investors are maybe listening to this, but to be able to achieve that from on market MLS deals is like basically crazy, right? Like in the marketplace with interest rates at 8.5%. Like it's just insane. And so
totally. Well, and that's with financing. So that's why we're using a cash on cash. But again, still, like you said, nobody ever really calculates conservatively enough. Nobody really puts all the CapEx numbers, the vacancy numbers in there. Everything looks sexier on a spreadsheet until you actually start renting it out, and then everything changes.
That's right. My mentor used to say that the best deal of any real estate deal was day one. That's the best day.
Yeah, exactly. And then reality strikes day two.
Then reality hits. Yeah. You're like, there's mold.
So are you acquiring, have you acquired most of your deals on market, and are you still trying to source on market?
We buy all of our deals on market. Yeah, I bought all of my deals out of the 30 some homes we have that are doing this model, 150 rooms, I think 38 homes or something, 35 homes. We have all of them have been on market, at the exception of 2.
Okay. Wow. Yeah. Interesting. And are you, even today, even with the market the way it is, you're still able to pop a deal on the MLS here?
Yeah. I have 4 in my underwriting folder right now. I could show you that are all 15% cash on cash or higher. Yeah.
It's pretty much everything in town. I mean, is that really where the market is best served, or are you doing anything like out in the suburbs?
Well, it's all suburbs, but I mean, in Charlotte, you've got like downtown, but you couldn't buy anything downtown for less than like 900 grand. Like it's like you got the like hopping hot area,
Sure.
but then you've got suburbs still within the main belt, I guess you could say.
Okay.
We've started to go outside of that belt a little bit just because prices and just it still is accessible to a lot of the main areas. But if we're within 20 minutes, I mean, and again, this is city specific. So why it's so important for everybody listening to invest in areas that they know. If you're in an area like in Charlotte, if I'm within 20 minutes of a good, an Amazon hub, the airport, like some of these big employment hubs that kind of fit my demographic, then that's where I want to be. And so that's a lot of times what we'll look for.
I gotcha. That makes sense.
Where are the employers that are going to be employing these people? And they're everywhere, really. I mean, they're the gas stations, the Target, they're one. But if there's a big hub for that, being closer to that hub is really nice. It's a benefit.
Yeah, you definitely want employers nearby.
And I think it's really important that everybody just understands the value proposition of this, though, because we get a lot of complaints. People be like, that just sounds. I got written up in the newspaper after a speaking gig one time. They were like, Sam Wegert peddles the newest, scheme from greedy landlords to blah, 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 blah. And I was like, man, that's not what I'm trying to promote. And so basically, like I kind of lead now with telling people that I lived in these homes, helped develop a model that's community-based and that's shared housing, and that people can live with good people for probably about half, if you include utilities, about half of what they would normally be able to live for. And so in my mind, if you just look at rising housing costs, there are tremendous amount of statistics on how little affordable housing we have in the United States and how that's not really being addressed. The latest statistic I read was we're like 7.8 million affordable housing units short. Nobody's really building them. There aren't crazy huge incentives, and if you do some math on that, it's basically like $1 trillion just to create the housing. That doesn't even include subsidies and all the stuff that has to go into managing it, like just that. And so it's a huge issue. And this is a creative way, in a fun way. And when I first came out on Bigger Pockets, a big podcast, I had the guy from Germany call me and he was like, Sam, you're talking about this like it's new. He's like, this is how we live in Europe. I was like,
right.
Yeah. He's like, you guys are just spoiled in the United States. He's like, this is how we live. This is how most people live. A lot of people live here. Like it's very rare that a millennial here owns a place. Yeah. Nobody owns a place here. We rent rooms a lot of times. So it's really just something that's kind of seeping in as we've had inflation and all this stuff. And so it's solving a big need. Unlike Airbnb, where we're taking housing off the market, we're putting housing back on the market. Right. And as an investor, you win. So it's a huge win-win for what's happening.
Totally. So you keep talking about all these people that are out there that need the affordable housing. How are you getting to them? How are you finding them? What sort of marketing are you doing? Because it's not probably traditional just for rent on Zillow, is it? I mean, where are you advertising for tenants?
It's funny you mentioned Zillow because literally 3 weeks ago, you can now list a room for rent on Zillow. I don't know if you knew that or not.
No, I did not know that.
Yeah, they just added it. Because we've tried to. Yeah, they just added it. It's like it's their newest thing. All the big tech platforms are getting behind rooms for rent. Okay. I mean, case in point, Zillow. But there are other ones. I mean, there are really big ones. There's Roomster. There's Roomies. There's one called Zumper. That's actually a room rental site. There's Craigslist, believe it or not, is still a juggernaut for rooms. They have a special category for it, right? And I'd say probably the biggest area is Facebook Marketplace.
Is it? Okay.
Like that, yeah, that's probably where we're seeing a lot. They have a special way that you can list a room, and people are, and we get a lot of leads through that. Yeah. But we'll get creative. We actually pick. We own 150 rooms, but we manage an additional 150, and so we're always running ads. We do some paid advertising on Google. We put out signs. Believe it or not, signs can produce a lot of leads. Just room for rent signs in town. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of ways to do it. I don't want to make it so different than just renting out anything else that you would rent out. If you have an apartment that you wanted to rent or a house you wanted to rent, you'd post on Zillow and Craigslist and apartment stock. You just post all those places. Yeah. And that's pretty much what we do. We just post in all those places.
So interesting. So you'd mentioned that you manage for other people. Maybe talk to us for just a second about, it's not just your own. You guys have a service and you consult. I mean, what does that look like?
Yeah, I had a lot of people starting to reach out to me just to be like, hey, I want to learn more about this model. And for like a good 6 months, I just took 15-minute meetings, but I would have like 3 a day. And finally, I had a partner come to me and be like, hey, man, like you're burning out and you need to do this in a group format. So we just started a way to kind of help people learn how to do this model. More specifically, how to find the properties, how to buy them, how to rehab them, just all the nuances of A to Z and just all the systems that I had put in place, the checklist, the templates, the membership agreements, basically everything they need to just kind of go and start acquiring, right?
Yep.
Or to build a partnership and then start acquiring. If they don't have the down payment or the money for the down payment, we even teach them how to raise capital and all of that. So, and then we did launch a service. Now we are scaling this back, to be totally honest. We launched a service called the White Glove Service. So for my students that were in our program, we would actually do everything for them. We would buy the properties, everything, like hands off. The problem with that is we were getting a lot of people who had maybe never done real estate before, and they're just like, it's a lot of communication. So we're kind of transitioning from a done for you to a done with you.
Yeah.
And that's a good transition for us. But we and then we manage it on the back end. So it operates like any traditional property management company. We take over your properties, we do everything, we handle maintenance, we handle the members, the tenants, the members, and then you get cut a check at the end of the month.
Okay. And what's that percentage? Because vacation homes, it's 20%. Single family, it's
15.
7 or 8%. So you're in the middle somewhere.
15, yeah.
15. Okay, yeah. So you kind of land right in the middle there.
Yeah, Pat. It's more. It's less than a short-term rental, but it's definitely more than a long-term rental for sure. Yeah.
Well, there's more involved, so that makes sense.
Pad split charges close. They're changing their model up a little bit. As we're sitting here on January 24th, 2024, they're changing their model, but they used to charge close to 22 or 23%. All things, all in. If you use their property management company and their membership-based model and the credit card fees, so it's. But they're making some good changes. But But here's what's crazy about that: they're able to take that, and these homes still are deals.
That's what's crazy. That's what's crazy. Yeah. The whole thing is just super interesting because, like you said, it's new. And what I love about it is, like you said, there's so much momentum behind it right now.
Yeah.
I mean, if Zillow is changing to now renting by the room, that tells you something, that they're adopting it. If the housing department's coming out and saying this is what we see the future is, then
yes,
this is what you want to get behind. Like, to your point, Airbnb makes me nervous. Look, I have some Airbnbs, but they still make me nervous because I feel like this one stroke of the pen in the city that this house, and then my model goes out the window. And they're doing that in a lot of different places. Like you said, Asheville's probably next. But this doesn't feel like that's what's coming. It feels like, if anything, it's loosening up with the co-living space.
That's right. Yeah, I think what I want people to take away is like, and I'm not saying this is good or even like, wow, this sounds, what I'm about to say is probably not sound American, but it's true. And it's like the room is becoming the new apartment.
Yeah.
And that's actually what the guy from Germany that called me that was getting on me for calling this a new strategy. He was like, it's not new. We live like this in Europe. And he was like, the room here is the new apartment. And I thought about that and I was like, wow. That's a big difference between kind of the model I teach and Pad Split. Pad Split, they furnish all their bedrooms.
Yeah.
So you go in, you get a furnished bedroom. That's cool. That's fine. But I really want people to see that bedroom as their space. And so we teach a model where you don't furnish any of the rooms. We furnish the common areas only. And like, that's your space. That's your apartment. Do whatever you want to that. Had one guy turn all the lights and make a blue neon lights in the fan. Like, cool. That's your spot, man. Do whatever you want.
Right.
And so I think if people kind of realized that it's a great place to live. It's like, having lived in these a lot, all of us have probably had roommates. I'm sure you guys have had roommates at some point in your life, whether it's college, and usually those were decent times in our life. They weren't terrible.
Right.
So just bringing back that model with a few more restrictions, and doing it in a way of, we have people living in these homes that make 80 grand. We've got one guy in this home that he claims to be a millionaire, but he's like, he claims to be a millionaire, but he's like, I just love hanging. I love this. I'm paying $800 and he sends all of his money he sends some money to his ex-wife. He sends some money to his kids. And they have a barbecue every Saturday. So he's like, it's a thing for him to live this way. And so my vision for where this asset class could go is that we make these homes so beautiful, so nice, so fun, and it's done so well that even people who could absolutely afford their own house or apartment are at least like, I don't know, that co-living thing sounds cool. Like, that sounds like, it's not about that's where I see this going, where I could see this going. I'll talk about it with my wife all the time. We live in a big house here, and I'm just like, can we rent out a room? Can we rent out 2 rooms? She's like, no.
Well, we live in a society that is increasingly isolated. I mean, if you want to think about the psychology, people living on social media that are more and more disconnected. And so, this is not only meeting, a housing need, from a financial standpoint, But I can see people that have the means. They're like, no, this is really attractive because it gets me connected to other people. I'm living in community in a way that maybe I likely wouldn't if I was alone. And you talked about it being un-American, but really, if you think historically, this was very common in the United States up until about the 1950s. If you look historically, room shares were very, very common up until about the post-World War II boom, when you see massive new construction for those post-war families, right, that are coming out buying but before that,
wow,
very common, very, very common across our country. So it's almost like we're moving back to something and meeting some real needs.
That's a really cool perspective, man. I've never heard it put in that way before, but that's a really cool perspective. I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna start using that. That's beautiful.
All right, let's end on that. He said it was beautiful, and I told him he's something ever.
Kevin's like, I'm done for the day. Boom, mic drop. I'm out. That's hilarious. Sam, this was really good. I do feel like I could continue picking your brain for another hour, and I'll spare you the agony of that.
Thanks, guys.
This has been really, really good, really eye-opening. And offline, I want to continue having this conversation with you.
For sure, man.
Sam, really appreciate you coming on, man.
Thank you guys for the opportunity. This was fun. Thanks for the opportunity to chat.
Absolutely.
Thanks. Dude, that was outstanding. And how crazy, like, I knew this guy's dad like years and years and years ago. What a random connection. I've known this guy for a long time.
I don't think that's, I mean, I've definitely had people on the podcast that I've known, but to like not realize there was a connection, you guys start talking and all of a sudden, wait a second, I know who you are. I know your dad.
I know your sister. I know your family. Wait a minute. That was kind of crazy. We're very unexpected.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, more reason to connect with them after the fact and see if there's some I think he would be a tremendous asset to our franchisees inside our system. I mean, this is a great program to roll out.
Agreed. Yeah, totally agree. I think there's an opportunity for us, opportunity for our franchisees. For those that you're listening, this is absolutely worth exploring further. Great opportunity and a great time to do it as well.
Well, think about how hard it is to find houses that pencil out from a rentals standpoint right now.
Yeah.
Because interest rates are high. Everything's expensive. It's hard to get stuff to pencil out. Well, if you can change your strategy, especially since there's so much momentum behind the strategy, there's so many companies that are cropping up just for this purpose. Yep. To me, it's a great way to make more houses work from an investment standpoint.
Well, tomorrow, hope it's a good call. And I expect an update in a week or two.
Guaranteed, Kevin. I vote we do this again next week.
All right. Guaranteed it's going to happen.
All right. See you, man.
That's a wrap for this episode of the Scale Your Real Estate Podcast. That was your host, Sam Wegert. We'd like to remind you that achieving financial freedom isn't just for you. No, it's about creating a richer life for everyone around you. If you found even one valuable nugget in this episode, would you please leave us a 5-star review? That would mean the world to us. Your review not only helps us grow, but it also brings this valuable information to more ears. Also, please share this with a friend or a loved one. It could be the nudge they need to embark on their own journey to financial freedom. Because at Scale Your Real Estate, we believe in growing together. Until next time, keep investing, keep growing, and keep building a life of passion, not just a paycheck.